From your MassRobotics experience, what would you say that would be the next challenges that the robotics industry is facing? And shall I connect here to the cybersecurity concerns that we start to consider at some point as you were discussing?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is the industry is transitioning from what I would call as a research model, and they're struggling to understand how they're going to become an industrial model. And what I mean by that is most of the research, or most of the robots have come out of the lab. They've come out of work at universities such as the one Bernhard works at and others, and they've only recently transitioned to industry. And so there are a lot of unfinished applications or works or software that's in these systems that are getting deployed. And we'll talk specifically about one, which is ROS, Robotic Operating System. But there are many other kind of attributes of these systems that you don't see in more established industries. And you know, some of our previous speakers talked about the risks of cybersecurity in major infrastructures like power and so forth. We don't have that same established mentality in robotics. There's a lot of, wow, this is new, this is working, let's get it out there.
It's what we can see in recent years, and what is also driving this very high visibility part of robotics is that you have this digitization that also drives Industry 4.0, also very much impacts robotics. So we have now a lot of robots that are driven by general purpose computing. So you don't necessarily rely on PLC programming that much anymore, but you have general purpose computing hardware, you have general purpose operating systems in a robot, and you can also program it with general purpose means, like an everyday programming language, C++ or Python. And you can use this, sorry, my microphone is somehow not good. You can use this to actually very, very rapidly program robots and get an application on a robot out there. And this is, on the one hand, it's great because it enables you to be very, very fast and very, very agile in developing your robot application. But it also brings the same issues that you have in computing for the last 25 or 30 years, which is mainly what we're concerned with is cybersecurity. Because we have very painfully learned in computer science what it means if you put out systems that are unprotected. And robotics is now on the path of repeating this history, unfortunately. We're all talking about Industry 4.0, and one really important part of Industry 4.0 is to be able to do flexible manufacturing. Flexible manufacturing inherently means that you need to be able to reconfigure your production from literally 1 minute to the other to produce something different. And how are you going to do that without network access to your robot? So this is a completely invalid argument, not connecting a robot anymore. This is completely valid for the classical style of doing robotics in automation is putting it behind a fence and programming it once and let it run for 10 or 15 years. That's totally okay if you don't connect it. But if you're going for flexible manufacturing, all your systems will have to be connected to each other. Otherwise, you have no way of ever being any flexible. And this also concerns the robots. And the robots are the physical manifestation of your flexible manufacturing. And those are the ones who are close to workers in the industry. The robots are the ones who are close to people once they're in the public space. And if they're insecure and we can remotely manipulate them, then this is actually a big problem for anybody in the value chain. First, of course, the guy who gets hit by the robot, the end user who is legally also responsible of protecting it, the integrator who deployed an insecure solution, and the manufacturer who produces an insecure robot.
Of including this security in the pathway towards the market, even if they are feeling the, let's say, the market pull.
Push very hard in order to be successful and grow. But still, there should be more openness, more awareness that you can actually do very simple things to ensure security already at the beginning of your development. And once you start off without it, it will just get harder and harder along the way to then put it on top. And everyone in security knows that putting security on top is always a very bad idea. It's better than having nothing, but it still will give you a patchwork of holes. And so from a research point of view, we're digging into this more or less every day, and we're finding new stuff every day. And it's actually way too easy to find vulnerabilities, and this is something that I do hope that everyone in the value chain becomes more aware of and more ready to spend some resources in this, because it actually is quite important.
So I think one of the things that I have been very impressed with is the level of attention that this region is focused on both cybersecurity and robotics and security specifically. There's companies here that I was not aware of that are leading in some efforts that we have not seen in the States. And so I think that the economy here is strong and can support the development of this technology, and that the region seems to be very small and cooperative. So I'm excited to see what's going to come out of the Basque region in this area.
The first Cybersecurity for Robotics conference has been held here with a strong support of all the actors involved in the Basque country about this. I do think that the very, very strong manufacturing industry that you have here is also, of course, affected by to a certain extent by the issues that we are trying to raise. But it's also great to see that the actual first company that cares about robot cybersecurity has been founded here. And that I think says a lot, and that you do all this effort to bring us here, to bring everybody here, and to make everybody aware of those issues. This is I think great, and this is pioneering work as I see it.
What is your viewpoint?
Yeah, robotics by itself is highly interdisciplinary, and cybersecurity is one of the disciplines that needs to be involved, like so many others. And I do hope that we can continue down this path for promoting this issue and this topic, also with the support of actors like the Basque industry and the Basque Cybersecurity Center. So having people like that on your side is very, very helpful.